wrap your work is extremely important because you are basically the mama or the papa of this thing. While you're still working on your work, you need to keep it at certain stages or states of clay so that it doesn't dry up. If it dries up, you're in big trouble. You might have to start over again, literally, if it dries up. There are some things here and there that you can do that I'm not going to talk about in this video, but for the most part, you've got to keep control over the state of your clay. And there's a few things to know about that. First of all, you do want to start getting into the habit, once you start working, of working on a wear board, and you want a sheet or a few sheets of newspaper between your work and the wear board. That way the work doesn't stick to the board, and it also can move and shrink if it needs to do that. If you know that you want your work to start firming up because it's just too wet, maybe you're waiting for a next stage, you are going to go ahead and put the work directly on the wear board with the sheet or the newspaper. If you know that you're not getting to this for another 2 weeks and you can't let it get any firmer than it already is, then at that point you are going to put plastic between your wear board and your work. So the sheet or the newspaper will still be on top, but you will have plastic in between. What you need to know about your wear board is that it is sucking out the water from this. And sometimes we really want that to happen. Sometimes we really don't. So you need to control that. The plastic is going to help if you are trying to keep it at a certain stage. What you want to wrap with is soft plastic. If you can find dry cleaning bags that are clear, those are the best, because when you do wrap, you can actually see your work. That's definitely best case scenario, but we don't all go to the dry cleaners, and don't go to the dry cleaner and ask for dry cleaning bags, because that's kind of wasteful, I guess. But if you can get a hold of these, that's what you want. The dry cleaning bags are, any time that I've seen them, they've been the soft plastic, so that is definitely where you want to go. But if you don't have that, then you can go ahead and just get like your regular kitchen bag. No big deal if you can't get a dry cleaning bag. What you don't want to do, however, and I see this and it makes me cringe because I know how bad it can be. Don't take your bag in a barrel and put it over your work like this. There are a few reasons for that. First of all, you don't have any real control over your plastic. I'm going to talk about how to wrap these right. And with this barrel, you don't have any control. The other thing too is when your work is in there, it'll get stuck to the bag. And when you go to pull that barrel and your work is stuck to the bag, you can break the work. I've seen arms pop off because of this. I've also seen somebody, this was horrible, sculpture was pretty much finished, they pull their barrel off and the whole sculpture went tumbling down because it got hooked on the edge. So do not use a barrel. You may not be sorry today, but eventually there will be a day that you will be sorry that you used a barrel. Instead, you're going to go ahead and you're going to cut this into a sheet of plastic. You're going to cut along this line and then this line. And then for this class, you're probably going to go ahead and just cut it in half. So now I have one long sheet of clay. I'm going to go ahead and cut it this way as well, or if it'll rip along that seam. Ooh, I got lucky. It ripped right along that seam. Wouldn't have been very lucky if I had trash in it. So now I have 2 sheets of clay that are about this big, which is a good size for what I'm going to wrap up here, maybe. First piece of plastic, if you are trying to keep things really nice and hydrated, or at the same state that they're in, you're going to take 1 sheet of plastic and wrap it really tight against the work. You can tuck in anywhere. Go ahead and tuck in. And then and you don't want this piece of plastic to be really big, right? You want it to suck in next to the work. Now this piece of plastic is going to be too small for the next step if your wear board is big like this one. But that first piece, you do want it to be smaller. Your second piece should be large enough that it can wrap around the work and around your board. So this is a trash bag that has been cut in half. The seams have been cut, but that hasn't been cut down. And I'm going to come in here and I am going to wrap underneath my board. So this is double wrapping. This is how I always wrap in my studio. And this is how you should be wrapping. And then you can go put your work on your shelf. Okay. If you're ready, you are finished, and you are putting it to bed, you don't want to double wrap like I just wrapped. You want to go ahead though and put a sheet of plastic over and just let it drape. You do not want the air to hit it in one spot, because if the air only hits it in one spot, it's going to dry that spot out quicker than it is going to dry out everything else. So when that happens, again, you can get warping and cracking, so you don't want that. This is how you're going to let it hang out and dry out, and I usually tell you to leave it hanging like this for a week. So usually a due date is going to be about a week before I actually ask you to go ahead and take the plastic off. Then we take the plastic off and we set it out for its final drying. If you still have a lot of work to do or you're in between processes, once it starts to get leather hard, you need to keep it leather hard. When you're working in class, you're going to want to be spraying this down all the time once it becomes leather hard. To spray down, you're not soaking, you're just giving it a spritz all the way around. While you're working, you're doing that, especially when you start to see or feel things firm up. It's really, really important that you don't let that happen. At the end of the day, it's always a good idea to go ahead and give it a final spritz before you put the plastic on. But I want you to notice something. Do you see how shiny this is? That means the water is sitting on the surface of the work. You do not want to put plastic on while water is sitting on the surface of the work. It's not a good idea. When you do that, the water never soaks into the work. It just sets on the plastic, or it sets in the area between the work and the plastic. So general rule of thumb, go ahead, spray it down, do all your cleaning, and then go ahead and wrap it up for the day, night, week, however long you need to wrap it up for. Another good thing to consider is getting one of the larger Rubbermaid tubs, a Rubbermaid tub that can fit, something like this in there. If you wrap it up and then put your work in a Rubbermaid tub, it's just going to stay that much better, especially if you know that you're not going to be working on something for a week or 2 weeks at a time. This is a little more advanced as far as wrapping up goes, and it's going to be more for people that are working on large-scale sculptures that really need their work to dry very slowly. One thing that you can do is take a dry towel, put your dry towel around your work, put the plastic around your work, the large plastic, and let the towel start to pull the water out of the clay. You will every day, every other day, kind of depends on how wet things are, you will need to take the towel that is now wet out, and you will need to replace it with a dry towel. That is extremely controlled drying, and if you dry that way, your work is going to dry very slowly, and you don't have to worry about things breaking or warping too much. Again, for something like this, there's no reason to go through that. But if you are working on a large scale bust or anything like that, I would go ahead and do the slow dry using the towel.